Have you ever noticed how manipulators become uncomfortable the moment you stop reacting emotionally? The same people who once controlled conversations, pressured your decisions, and drained your confidence suddenly lose their influence when you master one silent psychological skill. It is not aggression, revenge, or confrontation. It is emotional control combined with strategic silence and unshakable self-respect. Most manipulators survive on emotional access. They provoke reactions, create confusion, and keep people trapped in endless explanations. The moment you stop feeding that cycle, their power begins to collapse. They expect fear, guilt, anger, or desperation. But when they receive calm silence instead, they lose the emotional leverage they once depended on completely. Manipulators study your reactions more than your words. They carefully observe what hurts you, what triggers you, and what forces you to defend yourself emotionally. Once they discover your emotional weak points, they repeatedly press those buttons to maintain control. This is why emotionally reactive people often become easy targets without even realizing it. The first thing that weakens a manipulator is emotional detachment. When you stop responding instantly, stop over-explaining yourself, and stop chasing validation, you quietly remove the reward system they depended on. Manipulators do not fear loud people as much as they fear emotionally disciplined individuals who remain calm, observant, and difficult to emotionally control under pressure. Silence becomes powerful because it creates uncertainty. Manipulators rely on predictable emotional reactions to stay in control. When your behavior becomes calm and unreadable, they can no longer predict how to influence you. That uncertainty frustrates them deeply because manipulation works best when the other person reacts emotionally without thinking carefully before responding. Another reason manipulators back off is because silence exposes truth naturally. When you stop arguing endlessly, stop defending yourself, and stop participating in emotional games, their behavior becomes visible to everyone around them. Manipulators often depend on chaos and confusion. Calm silence removes the smoke and allows people to clearly recognize manipulation for what it truly is. Strong boundaries also create psychological resistance against manipulation. Many people think boundaries require aggression, but real boundaries are calm, consistent, and unemotional. A manipulator becomes uncomfortable when they realize you no longer tolerate disrespect, guilt tactics, emotional pressure, or constant mind games. Boundaries communicate self-respect without needing long emotional speeches or explanations. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to prove themselves to manipulators. They explain too much, defend every accusation, and desperately seek understanding from someone who never intended to understand them fairly. Manipulators often use endless conversations to exhaust you emotionally. The less you explain, the less emotional control they gain over your mental state and confidence. Manipulators also lose power when you become comfortable with distance. Many controlling people rely on your fear of losing relationships, approval, or emotional connection. Once they realize you can walk away peacefully, their influence weakens dramatically. Emotional independence becomes threatening, because manipulation only works effectively when someone fears abandonment more than disrespect or emotional exhaustion. Calm observation is another silent psychological weapon. Instead of reacting immediately, emotionally intelligent people watch patterns carefully. They notice inconsistencies, guilt tactics, emotional pressure, and hidden intentions. Manipulators dislike observant people because awareness destroys illusion. Once you clearly recognize manipulation patterns, emotional traps lose their effectiveness and become much easier to avoid confidently over time. Many manipulators test limits slowly. They begin with small, disrespectful behaviors, subtle guilt, or emotional pressure to see how much control they can gain. If someone tolerates those small violations repeatedly, manipulation grows stronger over time. This is why early boundaries matter. Small tolerated disrespect eventually becomes large emotional control if ignored consistently for too long. Confidence without emotional noise becomes extremely intimidating to manipulators. Loud confidence can still be emotionally reactive, but quiet confidence is different. Quiet confidence does not seek approval, validation, or constant attention. It remains stable under emotional pressure. Manipulators struggle with people who stay calm because emotional stability removes many of the tools manipulation depends upon daily. Silence does not mean weakness. In psychology, controlled silence often represents emotional strength, discipline, and self-awareness. Weak people usually react impulsively because they cannot control emotions under pressure. Strong people pause, observe, and respond intentionally. Manipulators become frustrated when they cannot provoke emotional chaos because emotional chaos is often the doorway through which manipulation enters relationships and conversations. Another important truth is this: manipulators often become aggressive when they begin losing control. They may guilt-trip you, create drama, spread negativity, or suddenly become overly kind again. These emotional shifts are usually attempts to regain influence. Understanding this pattern helps you stay emotionally grounded instead of becoming confused by sudden changes in their behavior toward you. The most powerful response to manipulation is emotional self-control. When you master your reactions, protect your energy, and refuse unnecessary emotional battles, manipulators slowly realize they can no longer control your emotional state.